Something worth returning to next morning. Sunlight filtered through the windows of Keanu's home, casting soft gold lines on the floor. Anna stood in the kitchen, barefoot, pouring hot water into 2 mugs. She was quiet, thoughtful, moving. With the kind of calm that only came from deep emotional stillness, Keanu walked in moments later, still in a loose black t-shirt, his hair slightly messy. He paused when he saw her, and for a brief second he just watched. It was the first time in years that someone else had stood in his kitchen. Not as a guest, not as a visitor, but as someone who belonged if only just for now. "You slept okay?" Anna asked, glancing over her shoulder. He nodded. "Better than usual." She handed him a mug. "Tea. Hope that's okay." "Perfect," he said. They stood at the counter, sipping slowly, letting the silence fill the room in a way that didn't. "Need to be fixed?" "You know what's strange?" Keanu finally said. "What? Waking up and not feeling the ache first?" Anna looked at him gently. "Maybe it's not gone. Maybe it's just not leading anymore." He smiled. "Maybe." They finished their tea quietly, and then Anna reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. It was worn, pages marked with little sketches and scribbles. "What's that?" Keanu asked. "Something I never show anyone," she said, a little shy. "When things get overwhelming, I write, or draw, or both. It helps me breathe." He leaned in slightly, interested. "Can I see?" She hesitated, then nodded. She handed it over, and Keanu flipped through it slowly. There were little notes. In Spanish and English, some were quotes, others were thoughts. Small drawings of faces, hands, clouds, oceans, and stars. One page caught his attention. It had a single sentence written in soft pencil. "He doesn't know how bright he is because he's used to living in the dark." Keanu looked up. "You wrote this?" Anna nodded. "A long time ago, about someone I knew. Someone who didn't realize how much light he gave to others, even when he couldn't see it in himself." His eyes softened. "Feels familiar." "Yeah," she whispered. "I think it was always about you." He blinked, caught off guard. "I saw it even before you said anything," she continued. "How kind you were, how patient, how deep your pain was, even when you smiled. I just didn't know how to say it out loud until now." Keanu placed the notebook gently on the counter. "I don't know what I've done to deserve this." "It's not about deserving," Anna said. "It's about showing up. You did, again and again, even when it hurt." He reached for her hand. "And now you're here. I'm here." They stood in that small kitchen, fingers intertwined. Something unspoken passed between them, something tender, something real. Later that day, they returned to set. The mood was different. Lighter. The director noticed it first. "Whatever you two did yesterday," he joked. "Keep doing it." But there was no performance behind their smiles now. What showed on screen was real. The bond, the softness, the silent language they had come to understand after the shoot. They sat outside the studio, the sun beginning to set again. "I want to show you something else," Keanu said. Anna raised an eyebrow. "Another secret," he smiled, kind of. They drove to an old, quiet neighborhood on the edge of town. Keanu stopped in front of a small, unused building, gray stone, ivy climbing its side. "What is this place?" she asked. "Used to be a community center," he said. "Before it shut down, I've been thinking about restoring it, turning it into something where people can breathe again. Artists, kids, anyone who needs a place to feel safe." Anna looked at him with surprise. "You never told anyone?" "I didn't know if I could do it alone." "You don't have to." Looked at her. "Would you help me?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Let's make it something beautiful." They walked around the dusty, silent rooms. Old paint peeled from the walls. Light came in through broken windows. But in their minds, they could already see what it could be, a place filled with music. Words, laughter, stories, and healing. Anna turned to him, smiling. "This place is like you know. How quiet, a little worn, but full of hidden beauty and ready to come back to life." Keanu laughed softly. "That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me." They stood in the middle of the large open room, the dust floating like golden sparks in the sunlight. Keanu reached out, took her hand, and whispered, "You gave me something I thought was lost." Anna tilted her head gently. "What's that?" "Hope." She squeezed his hand. "Then promise me something," she said. "Anything. Don't run from this. From life. From healing. Let it find you." He looked into her eyes, full of warmth and strength. "I promise." And just like that, something unbreakable began to grow, built, not on drama or desperation, on trust, honesty, and kindness. It wasn't the end of grief, but it was the beginning of something that made it easier to carry. The story he never told the next morning. Studio felt quieter than usual. Keanu arrived earlier than most, walking slowly through the back corridor where crew members rarely passed. He wore his usual dark clothes, a cap pulled low over his head, and his steps echoed faintly across the tiled floor. No one stopped him. No one had to. People knew when to give space. But inside, Keanu wasn't thinking about scripts or camera angles. He kept hearing Anna's words from the night before, how she sat beside him without judgment, how she didn't flinch when his voice cracked, how she simply placed her hand over his. He hadn't slept much. But for the first time in a long time, he hadn't stared at the ceiling in total emptiness. Her kindness had stirred something he thought he'd buried for good. Anna arrived 2 hours later. When she walked in, her eyes scanned the room until they found him. He was sitting at a corner table near the window, staring outside at the gray sky. She walked over without hesitation. "Morning," she said softly, placing her coffee down. He looked up and nodded. "Morning." There was an awkward pause, not because things were strange between them, but because there was so much to sand. Neither of them knew where to start. Anna took the first step. "How are you feeling?" Keanu shrugged. "Still here?" "That's something." He gave a small smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. He looked down at the table, then back up. "At her? Can I tell you something? Something I've never said out loud?" Anna nodded without speaking. He took a deep breath, as if pulling words from deep inside. "After my partner died, I stopped believing in timing. People always say everything happens for a reason or time heals, but I didn't feel that. I felt abandoned. Like life took something from me and then just moved on." Anna listened closely, not interrupting. "I used to drive around for hours at night," he continued, "sometimes with no destination, just driving, hoping the quiet would numb it. And sometimes I'd park somewhere and pretend she was still alive. Like maybe I'd go home and find her there." His voice cracked slightly, but he didn't stop. "I stopped letting people get close. It felt safer that way. If I didn't open up, they couldn't leave. They couldn't die. And I know how that sounds. But I was tired of losing." Anna reached across the table and gently touched his hand again. She didn't say anything. Silence said more than words could. "But yesterday," he said, "you sat with me. And it felt like it was okay to let someone see me again. Not the actor, not the public guy. Just me." Anna's eyes softened. "You've always been that person, Keanu. Even when you were hiding it." He nodded slowly. "I didn't believe anyone would want to see it." She leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. "I did." The room around them faded into background noise. It was just the two of them, speaking quietly in a world that often demanded too much noise. Then, unexpectedly, Keanu said, "I want to show you something later. Something I haven't touched in years." Anna blinked. "What is it?" He looked out the window, his tone more distant now. "I kept a journal during the hardest days. I stopped writing in it when I felt like there was no point, but I couldn't throw it away. It's in a box, locked. I haven't looked inside since." Anna nodded slowly. "You want me to see it?" "I think so," he said. "I think I want someone to know." A call from the assistant director broke the moment. They were needed on set. As they walked together toward the soundstage, Anna glanced at him and said, "Whenever you're ready, I'll be there." Keanu looked at her with quiet gratitude.
Thank you.
The scene they filmed that day was intense, emotional, filled with a kind of rawness the director hadn't expected but loved. The camera didn't just catch their performance. It captured something real, something unspoken. The bond between two people caring more than what the script demanded. After the shoot, they left together, driving in silence for a while before. Arriving at Keanu's home, it was quiet, clean, filled with soft colors and small memories frozen in time. He walked to the back of a closet, pulled out an old wooden box with a metal lock. "It's all in here," he said. "The truth, the pain, the nights I thought I wouldn't survive." Anna sat on the edge of the couch as he placed the box on the table. "You don't have to open it now," she said. "I think I do." He unlocked it slowly. His hand shook slightly as he lifted the lid. Inside were notebooks, worn and faded, photographs, a few dried rose petals, and at the very bottom, a letter never sent. He picked it up. Anna saw his expression shift, both pain and peace mixing in his face. "I wrote this after she passed," he whispered, "but I never had the courage to read it again. Maybe it's time." He opened it, and as his eyes moved across the page, tears silently fell. Anna sat beside him, quiet, steady, and then, after a long pause, Keanu handed the letter to her. "Read it to me," he said. The quiet before the brake lights above the soundstage flickered gently, casting long shadows over the film set. The air was still, almost too still, like something important had just happened or was about to. Crew members moved around quietly, respectful of the silence Keanu Reeves had created without saying a word. He was sitting on the edge of the prop bench that had been part of a dramatic scene minutes before. His head was slightly bowed. His shoulders, usually broad and calm, now looked tired and a little unsure. Nobody approached him. They had all seen it, the shift. During the scene, something had changed in him, not in the character but in Keanu. Himself, Ana de Armas, stood off to the side, holding a water bottle she'd forgotten to open. Her eyes were fixed on him. She had known him for years, worked beside him, laughed with him, shared long hours of rehearsals and flights and small moments that didn't always need words. But this was different. She'd never seen him. Like this, he wasn't crying. Keanu never cried in public. But something inside him had definitely cracked. The director whispered something to the assistant and walked away, giving a quiet signal. Filming was done for the day. No one said it aloud, but everyone felt it. The mood had shifted beyond acting, beyond script. Anna slowly walked over to where he sat. She didn't rush. She knew better than to intrude with loud comfort or forced concern. When she reached him, she didn't speak right away. Instead, she sat beside him on the edge of the bench, leaving just enough space between them. They sat in silence for a few moments. Keanu finally broke the quiet. "I'm sorry," he said, barely audible. Anna turned her head slightly, toward him. "For what?" He didn't answer right away, just looked forward, his hands clasped together tightly between his knees. "I thought I had it all under control," he said. Anna nodded. "Most people think they do, until they don't." He let out a small, dry laugh. "I'm supposed to be the strong one, right? The quiet strength guy? The one who never cracks?" Anna didn't push. Instead, she looked down at his hands. They were trembling slightly. "Keanu," she said gently, "what's going on?" He shook his head. "I haven't told anyone. I didn't want to. Didn't know how." "You don't have to say anything if it hurts," she said. But you also don't have to go through it alone." It's the way she said it wasn't pity. It was something softer, deeper. She didn't see him as broken. She saw him as human. And then, without hesitation, she reached over and placed her hand gently over his. Her fingers were warm, steady. Her touch didn't ask anything from him. It didn't push or demand. It just stayed. Something inside Keanu stirred at that moment. Something he had buried deep, far beneath the surface of every smile he had faked. For the cameras, every fan meeting where he had kept his voice steady, every red carpet where he had stood tall, he had been hiding a grief that never left him. The world had known about the tragedies he'd faced years ago, his unborn daughter, the sudden death of his partner. But what no one knew was how much of that pain had stayed with him, how it still woke him up at night, some days smiling. Felt like a betrayal to the people he'd lost. And now, After years of silence, Anna's simple gesture broke something open inside him. Not in a loud, explosive way, but in a slow, quiet way, like sunlight touching frozen ground. "I didn't mean to let it out here," he whispered. "Not on set. Not today." Anna squeezed his hand gently. Maybe today was exactly the day. He turned to her finally, and for the first time in a very long while, his eyes filled with tears. He didn't wipe them away. Didn't hide them. Anna didn't look away either. Just stayed there beside him, still holding his hand. "I don't know what to do with it all," he said. "You don't have to know today," she said softly. "Just have to stop pretending it's not there." They stayed like that for several minutes. No words, just presence around them. The crew packed up the set quietly, sensing something sacred was happening. No one interrupted. No one intruded. Anna leaned in just slightly and said, "You've carried too much alone. Maybe it's time you shared a little of it." He nodded slowly. "I don't even know how." Anna smiled. "You just did."
Hey.
The moment didn't solve everything. It didn't erase the pain or rewrite the past. But it was a beginning. For the first time in years, Keanu felt something shift inside him, a tiny flicker of hope. And it came not from some grand speech or perfect solution, but from a hand that simply stayed when his world was too heavy. The letter she never knew existed. Anna held the letter gently, as if it might crumble from the weight of what it held inside. Keanu leaned back on the couch, his eyes closed, bracing himself not for the words, but for what they would make him feel. The air in the room felt still, like even the walls were holding their breath. She opened the folded paper, her fingers careful not to tear its edges. The handwriting was neat but slightly shaky, as if written in a moment of deep emotion. She glanced at him one last time, making sure he was sure. He nodded slowly, eyes still closed. "Go ahead." Her voice was soft but clear. "My dear Jennifer," she read, "I don't know where to begin. I keep thinking this pain will pass, that I'll wake up and find you next to me. But every morning proves me wrong." Keanu's breathing slowed, his face unreadable but tense. Anna continued, her voice trembling slightly. "People keep telling me to move on, to stay strong, to remember the good times. But no one understands how hard it is to breathe without you. The world feels like a shadow of what it was." Keanu's fingers curled into the cushion. Anna noticed but didn't pause. "I miss the way you laughed at the dumbest jokes. I miss the way your hand fit perfectly in mine. I miss the silence we used to share. I would give everything to hear you breathe beside me again." Anna's voice softened even more. "I don't know how to live in a world that keeps spinning without you. I try. I go to work. I smile when people talk to me, but inside I'm frozen. I feel like a ghost walking through scenes without you." Single tear slid down Keanu's cheek. Anna paused for a moment, but he whispered, "Keep going." She nodded. Double quotes, "I write this not to say goodbye. I don't think I ever can. But maybe writing it down helps me carry you with me. Maybe, in these words, you're still a little bit alive." Anna folded the letter slowly and looked at him. Keanu, his eyes opened. They were red but calm. That was the only time. "I wrote to her after she passed," he said. "Couldn't write anything else, not even in the journal." Anna placed the letter back in the box, then looked at him with a quiet strength. "Thank you for letting me read it." He gave a weak smile. "Thank you for not walking away." A long silence followed, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that builds trust. After a while, Anna asked, "Do you want to go somewhere?" "Where?" "Anywhere. Maybe where it's quiet. Somewhere open. Somewhere new." Keanu nodded. "I know just the place." They drove. For 2 hours, leaving the city behind. The sun was starting to set when they reached a hidden cliffside trail overlooking the ocean. It wasn't a tourist spot. It was a place Keanu had discovered years ago during one of his long, aimless drives. "I used to come here after dark," he said as they stepped out of the car. "I'd just sit and watch the waves. It made me feel small, but in a good way. Like the ocean could carry my grief if I sat still long enough." Anna looked out at the crashing waves. The wind was soft, the sky painted with hues of gold and orange. They sat on a flat rock near the edge. "I never told anyone about this place," Keanu said. "I'm honored," she replied, glancing at him. He smiled, then turned serious. "Didn't realize how lonely I had become. I was surrounded by people, fans, crew, the world. But inside, I felt like I was disappearing." Anna looked at him gently. "We're not meant to carry everything alone." "I thought that was what strength meant," he said. "Being alone, not needing help, not falling apart." "Real strength," she said quietly, "is knowing when to let someone sit beside you in the darkness." He looked at her, and you did. He sat there for a long time, listening to the ocean. The silence between them no longer felt heavy. It felt healing. As the sky turned to twilight, Keanu pulled out his phone and showed Anna a picture. It was an old photo of Jennifer, laughing in the sunlight, wearing a faded red scarf. "This was the last picture I took of her," he said. "I never showed it to anyone." Anna looked at the photo and smiled. "She looks kind." She was Anna, placed a hand on his arm. "She'd be proud of you, for surviving, for still being here, for letting someone in." Keanu didn't respond with words. Instead, he reached out and gently placed his hand over hers this time, not to be comforted, but to connect. And in that simple gesture, something shifted again. He didn't feel like he was saying goodbye to Jennifer. Instead, it felt like he was finally allowing himself to say hello to life again. Anna leaned her head gently on his shoulder, and together they watched the waves roll in, one after another, just like life, always moving, always returning. The cracks where the light got in, it had been 3 weeks since Keanu showed Anna the old community center. Every day after filming, they returned to it, no cameras, no script, just paint on their clothes and dust in their hair. It wasn't about fixing the place fast. It was about building something slowly, carefully, with meaning. They cleaned the windows together, let the sunlight in. They pulled old boards off the walls and discovered faded murals beneath the dust. Someone had once painted stars and trees and faces full of laughter on those walls. It made them both pause. "Whoever did this," Anna said, brushing away the grime, "they believed in something." Keanu stood beside her, his eyes soft. "Maybe we're just picking up where they left off." Every time he held a hammer or lifted a box, Anna noticed something else. He was lighter, still quiet, still thoughtful, but his silence didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt full. Full of stories, of healing, of something slowly returning. One afternoon, as they cleared out the back room, Keanu found an old piano. Keys chipped and dusty. Anna sat down on the bench and pressed one softly. A gentle note filled the space, followed by a crooked smile on her face. "It still works," Keanu chuckled. "Barely." She began to play something simple. A soft melody, just a few notes. He sat beside her, watching, not saying anything. After a moment, she stopped playing and turned toward him. "What are you thinking?" she asked. He hesitated, then said, "I've spent most of my life hiding behind silence. Behind walls. I told myself it was protection. But now, I wonder how much life I missed while trying not to feel." Anna nodded. "You're not the only one. How do you do it?" he asked. "What?" "Stay open. Stay kind. After all the hurt," she looked down at the piano keys. "I've been through pain too. It's not like yours, but pain still. And I used to close off for years, but then I met someone who told me something I never forgot." Keanu leaned closer. "What did they say?" "They said you don't have to trust life all at once, just trust it enough to take the next step." He sat with that for a long time, then he quietly said, "You became that person for me, Anna." Turned to him slowly, surprised. "Me? Yes," he said. "When you touched my hand that day, it wasn't just comfort, it was permission. To stop pretending, to feel, to be seen." Eyes glistened. "I didn't know if it would matter." It mattered. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the broken windows. Anna stood and walked to the window frame, brushing her hand over it. "I want to paint this wall," she said. "Something new, something full of color." Keanu stood behind her. "What will you paint?" "I don't know yet," she whispered. "Maybe something that reminds people they're not alone." He touched her shoulder gently. "Whatever it is, it'll be beautiful." That evening, they sat outside on the building steps, sipping tea from paper cups. No one passed by. Just wind, the scent of earth, and the quiet sound of the world turning. "Do you ever wonder," Anna said, "what life could have been if things had gone differently?" "Every day," he replied. "But now I wonder something else." That what life could still become? They looked at each other, something deep and unspoken passing between them. It wasn't romantic in a rushed way. It was careful, earned, built like the place they were fixing, one gentle choice at a time. A few days later, news about the center spread. A local newspaper ran a story: Keanu Reeves and Ana de Armas restore old space for community healing. The article included photos, the two of them laughing in work clothes, painting murals, moving boxes. People were moved. Volunteers showed up. Strangers offered donations. Old neighbors came forward with memories of what the center used to be. One older woman walked in with a cane and said, "This place saved my son once. He used to sit in that corner and write music when he felt lost. Thank you for bringing it back." Kiana shook her hand, deeply moved. Anna whispered later, "Do you see now? It wasn't just about you. Your healing helps others too." Adarin said, "I see it now, because of you." But the biggest moment came quietly. One night while locking up, Keanu found something stuck under a broken floorboard. It was a small envelope, sealed and old. Inside was a note in faded ink. "To whoever finds this, keep building. Someone else will need it just like I did." He showed it to Anna. She read it slowly. "Someone left this years ago, maybe decades," he said. They stared at the note in silence. Anna smiled. "Then let's keep building." He folded the note and placed it gently on the front desk, where others could see it. A reminder that healing leaves a trail, and maybe one day someone else would need to follow it. The door he never closed against the grand opening of the center came on a Sunday. The sun was bright, the air soft with the scent of fresh paint and new beginnings. Flowers lined the old steps. Volunteers hung paper lanterns from the trees out front. Kids ran around with chalk, drawing hearts and stars on the sidewalk inside. The old walls had been transformed. The once broken windows now glowed with sunlight pouring through newly installed stained glass panels, each one painted by someone. In the community, laughter echoed through the halls. Music drifted from the small stage where a local singer strummed his guitar. Keanu stood by the entrance in a simple black shirt, sleeves rolled up, hands in his pockets. People greeted him with smiles, handshakes, and words of thanks, but his eyes searched the crowd for one person, and then she arrived. Anna stepped out of a car, wearing jeans and a soft white shirt stained with bits of dried paint. Her hair was tied back, and she carried a small canvas in her hand. Keanu walked over to her, smiling gently. "You made it," he said. "I wouldn't miss it," she replied, holding up the canvas. "I finished it last night, for the wall we never touched." He took it from her hands and looked at the painting. It was simple but powerful. A pair of hands, one reaching out, the other finally reaching back with light pouring through the space between them. "It's us," he said quietly. "It's everyone," Anna replied. "Everyone who ever needed someone to stay." They walked in together, passing rooms filled with life. Art classes, quiet reading corners, dance rehearsals, a boy playing soft piano notes in the back. It was more than a center now. It was a second chance for everyone who walked through its doors. A journalist from a local paper stopped them for a moment. "Keanu," she asked, "why did you do this? What made you bring this place back?" He thought for a second, then glanced at Anna. "Because someone reminded me that healing isn't meant to be done alone," he said. "And because I didn't want to keep pretending I was okay when I wasn't. This place, it's not about me. It's about all of us." The journalist nodded, touched. "Thank you." Anna smiled at him as they continued walking in the center's main hall. There was one blank wall left, wide and empty. Keanu placed the canvas on it. right in the center, and gently hammered in the nail. People gathered behind them to watch, but there was no speech, no announcement, just a quiet moment, and a round of soft applause. Later that evening, after the guests had gone and the lights were dimmed, Keanu and Anna sat on the front steps again. A soft breeze brushed past them. "Do you ever think about her still?" Anna asked. "Every day," Keanu replied. "But it's different now. It doesn't hurt the same way. It's like she walks beside me instead of behind me." Anna nodded. "I'm glad. I couldn't have reached this place without you," he said, his voice full of emotion. "You didn't fix me. You just sat beside me when I needed someone to stay." "That's all any of us can do," she replied. He looked at her, the way the soft light made her eyes shimmer, the way her presence calmed the storm inside him. "So what happens now?" he asked Ada. Anna smiled. "We keep showing up, for this place, for each other, for the people who still need what we needed." He took her hand in his, no longer shaking, no longer hiding, and for the first time in a long time, Keanu Reeves didn't feel like a man carrying grief. He felt like a man, had made peace with it, not because it had gone away, but because he had chosen to let someone in. He had chosen to live again. And beside him, Anna smiled not because he had healed completely, but because he had finally stopped walking alone.